Well, that looks like a good stream. We are live with today's A+ study group. Everything looks good there. Looks like YouTube has changed things on their side a bit. Let's see what is indeed going on. Let's go to my site, professormesser.com/live, and confirm that I am indeed live. I think it's one of those things where I really would like to know. Hey, look at that. There I am. That works just fine. It's always nice to wake up and Google has changed YouTube. So I have to figure out the buttons are different now. The screens are a little different. But it all works, so we're good. Hi, everybody. Hello, chat room. I think I have the chat room popped out there. Let's put you over there. There's the chat room. How's everybody doing? Good to see you. We have our Core 2 A+ study group today. So I am busy getting things together here on the live stream. Hope everybody's doing well. Make yourself comfortable. We will be starting the live stream at the top of the hour. You can see my local time is there in front of me, constantly telling me that I am late. That's what that's for. That is the thing that tells me if I'm doing what I should be doing. The answer is no, I am not. And I need something to direct me. Go do this. Do you know you have a live stream right now? It's that kind of thing. Let's put up the info. If you would like to put your virtual pin in our digital pin cushion, let's see. It would look something like this on your screen. Simply go to professormesser.com/QA and you can figure out where you happen to live in this world and put your pin cushion in. We have folks that are already starting on that. It really goes live about an hour before we get going here because I want to turn everything on and get everything running, and it works fine. Folks already checking in from the chat room. Hello, everyone. I see Idaho is here. New Jersey has made it. Congratulations for being here. Make yourself comfortable. We'll get some things going here shortly. Any giveaway plans for free access to A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus? Tell you what I'm going to do. Starting right now, I'm going to put every single video that I've recorded for every single course available for free online for all of my courses. Done. Got it. How about that? I think that's a pretty good one. We are all set. So no giveaway required. That's one of the benefits of just putting it all out there. Is you never have to talk about, well, should we give some away? Should we keep some behind a paywall? Should there be? No, it's just all there. You can just watch everything. It's just so simple when you do it that way. Simplifies my life at least a little bit. At least this much of it is simplified. Okay, thanks for being here, everybody. We are going to get started in just under 7 minutes. And right now, I am checking cameras, which are running. I'm checking my recording. You can kind of see the Cylons down here spinning around. Those are my video recording systems. That is not the button I wanted to push. That's the one I wanted to push. Those are my video recording systems. They are the Blackmagic Design HyperDecks that are recording this at 4K, even though you're only seeing it at 1080p. It's one of those things. There's a whole story behind that as well, but I do have a nice recording going locally. In fact, I need another recorder. I need to add a third to this mix. I have two currently. I have one that records the preview of what you have yet to see. I have one that really doesn't record the preview. I have one recording what I call the camera that just shows me. So I have one recording that just shows this. But without any type of graphic or anything. It's just a raw feed. I have another feed that shows my screen here, that screen. So I'm recording those two screens, but I am not recording what you see live with the lower thirds and the picture in a picture and all of the things we switch around. You don't see that in the recording because I don't use that. Everything goes to YouTube and that's where it is. But occasionally I will need to go to that recording to do some edits or updates or change things or whatever. And I don't have a local recording of that at the moment. So I really do need to get a local recording of that. How will you be able to vote for questions? Use the URL that is on your screen right now. In fact, you could warm up your browser, pop open a new window, pop open a new tab in your browser and go to https:// Do people even do that anymore? We used to do that in commercials when the internet was just becoming a thing. Point your browser to https://professormesser.com/QA. That's what we have here. You know, it looks a lot more like a big thing here. This whole studio setup looks a lot bigger than what it really is. Really, I just have big monitors because it's easier to see. If I could scrunch those down into smaller monitors, which I used to have really small monitors, 4 right in front of me that fit right under the screen. So imagine taking 4 of these monitors and now they're down there, but then you can't see them, especially when you're trying to figure out what are you seeing on the stream. That is what is up here in my upper left is what you see. And that's an important thing for me to be able to see because that's what you see. I want to be sure that everything that you see is what you need to be able to see. So that works great, having it on the big screen. The video switcher, similar problem. This is my video switcher screen. So all of the video and audio inputs and outputs are going through this device, not through the screen itself. The device is actually in a rack that's in my bottom left, and I have racks in the bottom left and bottom right of this desk. You can't really see them very well. See all those yellow, those red and, oh, it needs to be dusted. Those green and red lights. I know I'm coming up on the holidays because that's when we usually do cleanings of the rack. So there's red and green lights there. That is my video switcher, and the screen you're seeing is the console, that video switcher right here. So that's an important one. That's why that one's big. And then the other 2 are the ones I normally would just use when you're not here. When you're not watching, those are my 2 machines, and this is my daily driver. I just sit in front of this and do whatever this is that I do when you are not here. We write content, we make videos, we write books, we do all things like that. So really, all you have to do is just get a bunch of big monitors and stick it on your desk, and people, whoa, look at all the big yes, there are big monitors on my desk. You just have to get good monitor stands. I have nice monitor arms that are that I can move anywhere and move up and down, and they're perfect for this. I've been considering doing a 3-screen. My whole problem with 3-screen is that the middle is where I usually like to work from. And with 3 screens, you go off to the left or right of the screen and your mouse disappears, kind of goes over there. I can handle it when it's to the right. I can move my mouse over to the right side. And on the right side, I can handle that piece of it and then come right back to the left. And it's very natural. But I do a lot from the left side of my screen. And if I go too far left, it suddenly ends up over there. I physically can't handle it. My mind cannot make that happen. So that's what's going on. So these 2 monitors are the same device. They are my Mac Studio. And so they are the same computer. This is connected to the video switching component. It's a Blackmagic Design Constellation 4K for those interested. If you want to know what all this stuff is, it is on my website, well documented at professormesser.com/studio. Who thought of that? So we've got this. That is coming directly from the video switcher. So separate device, separate computer. This is coming from a separate piece of hardware as well, also a Blackmagic device that is designed to do streaming. That's all it does. It's down here on the right side. You can't even see it. The monitor, it's just underneath where the camera goes. You can't even see that piece of it, but it's a Blackmagic design streaming appliance. So again, separate machine, separate video output. So 1, 2, 3 separate systems, 4 if you count the laptop, 5 if you count the iPad, 6 if you count the phone that's just hanging out here on the edge of the desk. So there's lots of CPU in here. There's lots going on. No KVM switches here. KVM switches, I'm pretty much convinced are awful, awful things that are just made of evil. None of them seem to work right. None of them seem to be reliable. So I don't use them. I find them to be more of a hindrance than a help. All right, we got 15 seconds before we get started today. There's your tour of the studio. That was a very quick run through. One of these days, we are going to need to do a very detailed run through of the studio, just so it's documented and on the website, and we can sort of watch it over time. I think that'll be fun. Look at that, 12 noon. I wanted to wait until it hit noon. Let's bring up our keynote. Let's look for the green play button is already there waiting for me. We'll hit the green play button. Let's see if it does anything. It's just sitting there. Did I miss it? I hit off to the side. I sure did. There we go. That's the way we want it. It's time for live stream. We'll get rid of this. We'll put this on the screen and away we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the October 2025 Professor Messer A+ 220 1202 Core 2 A+ study group. This study group is designed to give you questions and see how much you really know about the official CompTIA exam objectives for the Core 2 A+ exam. Today, I'll be asking you questions that come directly from those objectives, and we'll see just how much you know of those topics. Indeed. If you are someone who would like to join us and answer these questions, if you do happen to be here live, we would love for you to join us. The way that you would do that is to pop open a new browser window and head over to the URL that is on your screen right now. ProfessorMesser.com/QA is where you would like to be. That is the link that will give you access, and you just have to stay on that page. Everything there is ready to go. So all you got to go to is just one single URL. It's right there. Just type that one in and you're finished. You're fine. You're nothing more you need to do than to go to that URL, and everything from that point is perfect. Now, does that work? Is the URL working properly? Is the information we need to have? Is everything the way it should be? Well, we're about to find out. A number of you are putting things into. One of the reasons, for those of you that are in the pre-show, one of the reasons that I put up the map of the world where everybody is connecting in from, which is, first, is just cool to see where everybody happens to be. I really enjoy seeing that part of it, and I think it kind of connects us a little bit better. All of us are trying to get that first job in IT or a better job in IT, and it's great to see that we're not alone in that process. So that's one of the reasons that's there. The other reason is I know the QA part works because it's all integrated together, and that's one of the reasons why we have that up there. So to see if that's really working, let's do a question, shall we? I've picked a question from last month. All of the other questions in the study group are brand new, by the way. But the first study group question that I like to do is a question that you may have seen before, but we're going to see how much you remember about this question. I'll also preface this by telling you that our standing rule in the study group is to please not answer the question or give any hints to the question in the chat room. Instead, you want to follow the URL that is on your screen. Put your answers into the link that you see here, ProfessorMesser.com/QA. This asks the question: a technician is modifying web page to display constantly updating graphs and statistics. Which of the following scripting languages would be the best choice for this task? Would it be JavaScript, Python, PowerShell, Shell Script, or Batch File? Now, if you know the answer, you need to go to the link on your screen, ProfessorMesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. And we're going to come back to that question in just a moment. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have so much to go through for Core 2. We'll talk a little bit about the changes that have recently happened for the A+ exam. And when we are not here on this live stream, you can join us on many of the social media sites that we happen to be. Of course, our entire A+ course is available for you to watch on YouTube at ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube. We also have links on Twitter/X, links for Instagram, links for LinkedIn. And all you have to type in is ProfessorMesser.com/ the name of the site you'd like to find us on, /LinkedIn, /X, /Twitter, /YouTube, /Instagram. That's the way you do it. What could be easier? Or here's the good one, /Discord. Always a good one too. That way you can find us, and we've got thousands of people on the Professor Messer Discord that are studying for their A+, their Network Plus, their Security Plus, and other certifications. And we have people on that Discord who have been nice enough to come back after earning their certification and talk to others about their studies. It's a great place to network with other people and learn a lot more about the topics associated with this exam. Sometime in this first hour, I'm going to give you some information, some details, some instructions on how to earn a CEU by simply watching this video. We call these continuing education unit credits. I guess we don't call it that. CompTIA calls it that. So, of course, we call it that as well. This is one way that you can renew your certification without having to take the exam over again. There are other ways to renew your certification. And if you are interested in seeing that, make sure you look at the YouTube video description of this video. I have a link to the video that I created that describes ways that you can earn your A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus renewal in just a few hours. All detailed there, and it does not involve collecting CEUs. But if you are collecting CEUs, we'll help you with that as well. Just listen in this first hour, and we'll give you those instructions. The English language versions of the A+ exam changed a bit over the last month. On September 25th, we retired the older versions of the exams, and now the newer versions of the exams are the only ones that are available. These are versions that have been out since March, of course. This is no surprise. We all knew that there was going to be a retirement on that date. But the retirement date for this latest set of exams, you may be wondering, is that going to retire soon? Well, fortunately not. The estimated retirement for these exams is around September of 2028, 3 years from now. So you're good. We don't have to worry so much about a deadline associated with these. The exam itself is 2 exams. You have to take the 1201 and the 1202. You might also see these referred to as version 15, V15 exams. These exams are 90 minutes each. On the 1201, you need to earn a 675 on a scale from 100 to 900. It's an unusual scale. On the 1202, you need to do a little bit better. You need to earn a 700 to pass your exam. And of course, that's the exam we will be talking about today. Once you pass the exam, your certification is good for 3 years. It really doesn't matter when they retire the exams, because once you pass the exams, that doesn't matter to you. What's important to you is the expiration date of the cert that you have earned. So another important thing to consider. We will be talking about the Core 2 exam today. So the questions we have for you today deal with operating systems, security, software troubleshooting, operational procedures, and potpourri. We'll look at all of those and more. And of course, don't forget about the second hour when I will answer your questions. If you do have a question for me, you can put it into our Q&A system. Simply go to the same Q&A link that I gave you earlier, professormesser.com/QA, and use the tab at the top of the screen. We will also be saving this as a video replay on YouTube immediately after we're done. So you can always go to professormesser.com/YouTube to see that. I will be creating a audio-only podcast distributed format of this live stream. And if you are a podcast listening person like I am, you might want to add it to your favorite podcast listening program. You can do that at professormesser.com/podcast. If you happen to be on one of the streaming services like Spotify, just search for Professor Messer. It will already be there. You don't have to download anything. You don't have to configure anything. Just search for Professor Messer and you will find all of our podcasts there. Don't forget that our YouTube video description will also be updated in about a day. This is done thanks to the hard work of my marketing manager, Lori. Hey, Lori. Lori is going through and watching this probably at 2x speed and figuring out where all the timestamps are and putting all of those timestamps into the YouTube video description so that you can find what you need even faster, making your training process, your learning process, your study process happen so much quicker. Just another way that hopefully we make this process a bit more streamlined and easy for you. Thank you, Lori, for doing that. I mentioned earlier that we are on Discord. You should be on our Discord as well. There's the link. Go to professormesser.com/Discord, and there is a Discord icon at the upper right of the screen on our website, or simply just go directly to that link. Either one of those will work just fine. It's a great way to join us, and a lot of fantastic folks that are in there who are super smart about these technologies and can answer questions for you practically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Someone is always in there doing something, which is fantastic. We welcome you to do exactly the same thing. Eventually, you will need to take your exam. And if you are in the US or Canada, you might want to save a few bucks by going over to professormesser.com/vouchers and getting a discounted set of vouchers. These are the same vouchers you would get from the CompTIA website, but you're just not paying as much as you would pay on the CompTIA website. Those vouchers themselves are for any of the CompTIA programs, all of their certifications. But if you purchase the voucher on my site, I even give you something extra that you can't get anywhere else. That's a copy of my Exam Hacks ebook. My Exam Hacks ebook is a list of tips and tricks that I've accumulated through the years after taking the A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, 6 or 7 Microsoft certifications, a number of handful of certifications from Palo Alto Networks, Cisco certifications, AWS. I've got a few certifications under my belt here. And all of these, you learn little tips and tricks as you go. I tried to take all of those that apply to CompTIA and put them into a set of tips and tricks here. Also, some tips in this book that can help you during the exam itself, something that might be a useful thing to have. And you can only get it with the purchase of a voucher or purchase of one of our success bundles. So this is not sold separately. This is the only way you can get your hands on it. If you want to get your discounted voucher, go to professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's go back to that question I asked earlier. The question was, a technician is modifying a web page to display constantly updating graphs and statistics. Which of the following scripting languages would be the best choice for this task? Would it be JavaScript, Python, PowerShell, Shell Script, or Batch File? Let's stop our polling and see what you put in as the answer. Oh, well, large number, 84% of you. Big chunk of the pie says the answer is JavaScript. And then it's single digits from there. We have 6% for Python, 6% for Shell Script, 4% for PowerShell, and 0% for Batch File. No love happening on the Batch File side. Well, that's probably because Batch Files are best used for very administrative tasks at the command line of a Windows computer. A batch file really does have nothing to do with updating a website dynamically. So therefore, that's why 0% of you chose that, because you're super smart. You already knew that. And you're also, 84% of you are also super smart because you said JavaScript was the best way to do this. And it is. It's a way to provide interactivity to HTML, to these web pages that we visit. That's not the only thing you can do with JavaScript, obviously, but it is a very common use of JavaScript. And of all of the scripting languages that you saw on your screen, that is the scripting language that fits the best into that scenario. We'll step through some of these others too, so you can get a feel for what other options that were on the screen and why they weren't one of those options. Well, certainly. In fact, let's do that right now. JavaScript, of course, 84% of you, that is the right answer. Python is a great scripting language if you are in Windows, if you're in Linux, if you're in Mac OS. Multiple operating systems can run Python, but Python is not commonly used within a browser, and certainly not to provide interactivity within a browser. It's more used outside of that scope, more at the operating system level. Python itself then would not be the right answer, and only 6% of you thought it was that. Anyway, shell scripts, it's sort of like a batch file, but for Linux. It's pretty much the same thing. A batch file is for Windows, a shell script is for Linux. It happens at the command line, and it really is not something you would see in a browser either. PowerShell is kind of an upgraded version of a batch file. It is a Windows feature that you can enable or install, and PowerShell gives you really direct access to the operating system. So if you are a system administrator, a workstation admin, a server administrator, you need to learn as much as you can about PowerShell. This will be something you use all the time to make this happen. In this case, the answer, by far, 84% of you got this one right. JavaScript was the right answer, and that is exactly where we needed to be today. You did a much better job on this question than you did last month. Well, how about some new questions, right? Let's do something new. One of the things that we always like to do with our first new question of the study group is to give you a question that CompTIA calls a performance-based question. Performance-based questions, or PBQs, are questions that are effectively anything but multiple choice. So CompTIA can give you questions that might be a fill in the blank. It might be a matching question. They might put you at a command prompt and ask you to perform some functions. They might put you at a Windows desktop and say, do something here in Windows. They might give you a specific task, and you need to be able to do that on the screen. In fact, if you go back to our previous study group replays, we have a different performance-based question every month. So it might be a good way to help with your performance-based question studies. The performance-based question we have for you today is the question that asks, pick the best Linux option to respond to the following. You know what? I don't even think I put this into, I didn't put it into my polling that we have here. So you're going to have to just think about this one yourself. And to yourself, write down, make a note of what the answers will be. We really don't show the answers anyway for our performance-based question, so you're not missing anything. I'm the only one that is really missing out in this scenario. So I have for you a number of different Linux things that we need to do, and I have a list of tools that you can use to make that happen. I know some of these are difficult to see, so why don't we do this? There we go. Pick the best Linux option to respond to the following. And I have 5 different things here. A user cannot locate a spreadsheet for an important meeting. How would we react to that? What would we do? The next one is identify the IP address of the corporate web server. Certainly there is a tool that we can use to do that. Next on our list is a user would like to install a video editor on their new laptop. That sounds like fun. I should probably do that on my new laptop. The next one is an application configuration file must be modified with new parameters. I imagine it would. I'm constantly changing application configuration files. That's ripped from the headlines right there. And lastly, verify the integrity of a database server's file system. So those are the 5 things we want to do in Linux. Here are the 8 different tools that you could apply to these. Pick one of these for each one. Pick either dig, top, find, df, dnf, nano, sudo, and fsck. We've got a lot to choose from there. You should be able to find what these happen to be. If you think you know what those answers are, visit the link at the bottom of your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. No, don't do that, because I just told you you can't do it. I got a little ahead of myself there. So ignore that part at the bottom of the screen. You'll never hear me say that again. Just ignore that link. You don't need to go there. You can simply do this in your head. Now, you'll notice there are 5 different things that you need to accomplish, but there are 8 different answers. So you're right. There are 3. I did the math. 3 will be left over at the end of this. So don't worry that you've got a few that are just not applied, you're not using. That's normal. In fact, it's normal for your exam as well. It's a very common type of question that you will see on the actual exam, where they will give you a series of things to choose from, but they will give you many more things to choose from than you have questions. So you might have 5 questions and 10 answers, which means 5 of these would not be used. They don't want to make it a gimme. They don't want to make it too easy. You want to add a little difficulty level in there to the exam. So that is what it is like. So make sure you're familiar with all of these. Make sure you're familiar with the style of the question. But of course, these performance-based questions can be any kind of question that you could imagine. I've had people tell me that, oh, I got your practice exams book, which has 15 performance-based questions in it, but the performance-based question on my exam was different. Well, yes, it was, because it is a performance-based question, can be anything. It is just randomness that is in the universe. So I can't come up with every possibility there would ever be for any kind of performance-based question, because it simply cannot be done. But I will give you similar styles and similar ways that the questions are asked and answered. And this is, I think, a very similar way that you would see on an exam. Certainly a common way that CompTIA has done their performance-based questions in the past. But this is, of course, an originally written question that I wrote quite literally yesterday. I was running a little behind. Normally, I like to have these done a few days beforehand, but it took me until yesterday to get this done. Now, what I can't see in this case is how many people have answered the question. So we're going to step through these answers one at a time and see how you did. Let's pick the best Linux option to respond to these following challenges that we have, these Linux issues. A user cannot locate a spreadsheet for an important meeting. Where is it? Where could it be? Someone calls you and said, I've got the spreadsheet. I have to present it. I can't find it now. It's on my Linux machine. I can't find it anywhere on this device. Well, you just need to use the find command. I want to say that this was a gimme, but it really isn't. Sometimes I really am challenged to remember, now, what command would help me find things? Well, maybe the find command. Linux is not always this straightforward, by the way. So we should enjoy this while we have the chance. Linux is very often a bit more cryptic in their commands. This one, though, relatively straightforward. So I thought it'd be a good one to start with. The find command Helps you find files, documents, and other things on your file system. The next one we'd like to do is identify the IP address of the corporate web server. This can be a challenge. Do you go to the web server? Do you type something in on the web server's console? Do you try to ask somebody where it is? Well, one of the ways that you could ask an authority where this IP address is to ask the DNS server. That is the domain name system server, and one of the Linux tools that allows you to query the DNS server for the FQDN, the fully qualified domain name of a device, is to use NSLOOKUP or to use the more modern dig command, D-I-G. Can you dig it? There it is. That is the command you would use to query a DNS server and get responses from that server. It's a great little utility. It comes in handy, and you will be using it often, I assure you. Next on your list is a user would like to install a video editor on their new laptop. That sounds like fun. So how do you just run the install command? The setup.exe? No, it's Linux, which means you would need to install the entire bundle of this application. You could use a number of, you could use Yum. That would be a good one. You could use apt or apt-get. Those would be good. But there's a newer version of Yum that is available, which does not have as good a name as Yum. I really like Yum and the name. This is DNF. DNF is the utility that would allow you to install or update applications or utilities that are on your Linux desktop or machine. So very useful to have that there. DNF is one of those in the list of things that we had available, and that would be the best choice that you would have. Next on your list is an application configuration file must be modified with new parameters. Well, that's something we need. Usually these application configuration files in Linux are text files, thankfully. They're very simple to understand. Everything is in one place. You go to this one configuration file, and it handles all of the configurations for that specific utility. And the way that you would edit that text file is, of course, using Vim, because you are not an animal. You're using the proper editor. Yes, but that wasn't one of the options. VI and Vim not on here, but Nano is. Nano's still pretty good, quite honestly. A nice full screen editor. You've got some control options. It gives you information on the screen on how to save things. It really is a much more user-friendly editor than Vim happens to be. I grew up with Vim. I cut my teeth on Vim, so that's the one I always use. And everybody has their own favorite of text editors for Linux, but that's the only one that was in the list. So that's the one we're choosing. Number 6, Nano was the answer for that one. And lastly, verifying the integrity of a database server's file system. This is where you would want to be sure that your file system is working properly. And the way that you would do that is to usually restart the system so that it will run the file system check, FSCK. File system check is going to be sort of the check disk command for Linux. I hate to make those comparisons between Windows and Linux people because it usually only serves to enrage both of those camps. So I try not to do too many comparisons, but that's a pretty good comparison. The check disk commands that checks the file system in Windows is very similar to the FSCK command that checks the file system in Linux. It's a similar process. You need that type of thing regardless of what operating system you happen to be using. So those are our 5 commands. A user cannot locate a spreadsheet for an important meeting. That would be the find command. Identifying the IP address of the corporate web server is dig. Dig. A user would like to install a video editor on the new laptop. Install it with DNF. An application configuration file must be modified with new parameters. Use Nano to be able to edit that file. And verifying the integrity of the database server's file system is FSCK. We did not use top. We did not use DF. We did not use sudo. So we have those 3. Top is a command that allows you to get an overview of the current status of your system. If I may make the comparison again, if you've used Task Manager in Windows, you'll be very familiar with the top command in Linux. We also have DF. That's disk free. That shows you how much free disk space you have. I don't know why they made that one so difficult to use, why it's a DF. But you will become using that one often. It will be ingrained in you. Whenever you start doing something on a Linux system, oh, let's see how much disk space is available on this device. We'll find out using the DF command. And sudo, S-U-D-O. Or as some people said, You need to say sudo. Well, either way is fine, quite honestly. One of the things about Linux is there is no proper way to say anything, it seems. Half the camps say you should say it one way, half the camps say the other way. And I think that's probably a great way to think about these things. It doesn't matter how you say it as long as everybody knows what you're talking about. Sudo is the command that we would use there, and that is to use the super user capabilities on your system to be able to use elevated rights and permissions at the command line. So there you go. You have a lot of options there to work through. Sudo is the last one there. If you're someone who is working in Linux, these are probably very easy for you. If you've never touched the Linux operating system, however, you might want to try some of these. Of course, in our video on Linux commands, we have 2 separate videos of the Linux command line. Those 2 commands, those 2 videos with all the commands in it have demonstrations associated with it, so you can follow along with me and try some things on your Linux system. Maybe you want to set up a Linux VM on your computer and follow along with my video. Be a great way to go through it. Hopefully you're familiar with those. As I mentioned, there are 2 videos in my video course that mention these specific commands, because 2 videos means there's a lot of Linux commands, and we're only looking at 8 of them on this screen. There are many, 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 many more you need to know. Make sure you're familiar with them. They are all listed in the official CompTIA exam objectives. Well, that is your performance-based question of the month. Hopefully you did pretty well on that one. Let's now shift gears a bit and have a look at a multiple choice-based question, something that's a little more familiar. This question asks, a company has been informed that client names and mailing addresses have been obtained by a hacking organization. Which of the following best describes this type of data? Is it NDA, PII, PCI DSS, PHI, or AUP? Got a lot to choose from there. The question again asks, a company has been informed that client names and mailing addresses have been obtained by a hacking organization. Which of the following best describes this type of data? Is it NDA, PII, PCI DSS, PHI, or AUP? If you think you know the answer, go to the link that is on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. See what you think it is. A lot of people locking in their answer quick. Always look at the number, see how fast it moves. I try to make the questions enough where you have to really think through all of the different options to really find the best one. CompTIA does this on their exam as well. They like to give you questions that require you to look at all of the answers to pick the best one. A lot of people are frustrated over those questions they get that ask for the best or the least or the first thing that you would do. The reason they ask those questions, one of the reasons they ask that question, is it requires you to read through every single answer because you really don't know which one is the best until you've read all of them. A lot of questions, if it was a simple question that said, what port 80 is used by SSH? Well, you already know what that is. Your mind goes, that's 22. All you have to do is find 22 in the list and go with it. You don't even have to look at the other answers. But not a question like this. They make you go through every single one of them to be able to break it down. Speaking of breaking it down, let's see how you did with this question. It asks, a company has been informed that client names and mailing addresses have been obtained by a hacking organization. Literally happened to me this week. And I ask you in this question, which of the following best describes this type of data? Is it NDA, PII, PCI DSS, PHI, or AUP? Let's see how you did. I'm going to stop the poll and we will see what type of results you get. 82% of you, another strong set of answers, believes that the answer is PII. 6% say it's PCI DSS, and then a 3-way tie for third place with 4% apiece would be NDA, PHI, and AUP. So if we look at the 82%, that's a pretty strong number. That is the right number. PII is the answer that we were looking for because PII is personally identifiable information. Did I say personally identifiable information? Well, I did now. Personally identifiable information is things, types of data, information, some type of detail that can somehow be linked back to you as a person. So that might be your address. It might be your social security number. It could be a bank account. It could be information about where you live. It could be phone numbers, anything that's linked back to you. That's the important part. And they use that personally identifiable information for your bank accounts to reset passwords. So it's a useful bit of data that the hackers can use, not only to try to get into your accounts, but then also use this against you. They can send you a phishing attempt that says, "Hi, James, we're contacting you about your loan for your house located at," and then it gives my house address. Oh, well, this must be my bank asking about my mortgage. And then you think that's who it is. But in reality, they just grabbed your personal information and they're now using it against you. This is why we can no longer trust anybody ever, online or elsewhere, as it seems. PII is the answer that we were looking for, and that's the one that 82% of you chose. That is the correct answer. This, of course, is located in my video under the 220.1202 course, section 4.6, and the video is privacy, licensing, and policies. Now, what about these other answers? PCI DSS is the payment card industry. DSS, this is the set of rules and regulations the payment card industry puts on people that store credit cards. I do not store credit cards on my site, so I am not subject to PCI DSS. I have that process done elsewhere. A third party handles that. That is much more secure on the credit card side. They are PCI DSS compliant and then some. So that way you don't have to worry about your card being on my server, because it isn't on my server. It's on a much more secure server, if you can imagine that. My server is pretty secure. Those credit card numbers are very secure using PCI DSS as their guideline. NDA is a non-disclosure agreement, has nothing to do with getting names and mailing addresses. It's an agreement where one or more people involved in the agreement say that they're not going to say anything. This is what happens in Vegas, stays in Vegas. That's a non-disclosure agreement. PHI, the personal health information, PHI. So PII is personally identifiable information. PHI is sort of like PII, but your healthcare data. So it has a very specific category associated with that. PHI would be things like your medical records, information that you get back from a blood test, your maybe x-rays that you've done. All of this information is very private, it's very personal, and it is PHI. And lastly, we have AUP. When you start working somewhere, they want to be sure that you're using all of this electronic equipment in the proper way. And an AUP is usually built into your employee agreement. Maybe it's a handbook they give you. It is an acceptable use policy. So they will tell you what is acceptable, and then sometimes they'll even tell you what is not acceptable when you're using the company computers, the company phones, the company equipment. Just another way that everybody understands what is acceptable and what is not. You don't want somebody to do something wrong and you say, well, you shouldn't have done that. And they go, oh, was I not supposed to do that? Oh, I didn't realize. Well, now we give you an AUP. You can't say that anymore. You can't give the Elaine excuse. Oh, was I not, or was it the other, maybe it was one of the other characters. So, oh, was I not supposed to do that? That's one of those scenarios. So AUP avoids that in this case. In this case, it was your client name, your mailing address. That is absolutely qualified as PII, and that is the answer that we were looking for. Let's do another question, shall we? Let's keep this party going. Next on our link, well, we've done Linux already. We haven't really done much Windows, so we're going to shift over to Mac OS. That's how we're going to address this. This question asks, a Mac OS laptop owner is using their iPhone as a laptop webcam. Did you even know you could do that? You can. It's pretty nifty. Which of the following would best describe this operation? Would it be mission control? Well, if I gave you the right link, there we go. Would it be mission control, continuity, spotlight, gestures, or iCloud? It's got to be one of those, right? A macOS laptop owner is using their iPhone as a laptop webcam. Which of the following would best describe this operation? Is it mission control, continuity, spotlight, gestures, or iCloud? If you think you know the answer, go to the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. We'll have to see which one of these you think it is. See a little bit slower as we look at the numbers that are accumulating. This is how I know that maybe we're thinking about this one a little bit. Not everybody's using Mac OS, and indeed, this is a relatively new feature to Mac OS. I say relatively. I mean, Mac OS has been around for a very long time, but in the last number of years, this is a feature that's been added. So you will see a lot of these new features and capabilities for both Windows, Mac OS, and Linux put into the A+ certification. And because this new version just came out this year, everything in there is pretty recent. So this is a really good time to be taking this exam, by the way, because everything is so up to date, so shiny and new. Be a good time to take this exam. Let's see how you did with this one. The question again asks, a Mac OS laptop owner is using their iPhone as a laptop webcam. Which of the following would best describe this operation? Is it mission control, continuity, spotlight, gestures, or iCloud? Let's see what you chose. 66% say the answer is continuity. 14% say the answer is mission control, and 13% say the answer is spotlight. Effectively a tie for second place. And that would be a tie for, is it third place or fourth place? How would you count that? Would be gestures and iCloud with only 4% apiece. So the continuity got the most number of votes, and that's because that's the right answer. Continuity is what we are looking for in this scenario. With continuity, you can do more than just use your phone as a camera. You can easily switch and move between devices. So you could be on your phone, scrolling along, looking at a website, then you sit down at your desk. Well, instead of trying to figure out the URL you were on and then typing it in at your desk, you simply open the browser at your desk and it lists out all of the tabs you have open on your phone. So all you have to do is click on that and it goes to that tab. It is seamless when you're working through those. You can also mirror the iPhone screen. So if I'm working at my desk and I get an alert on my phone, I get a phone call on my phone, I can pop up the entire phone at my desk to be able to see what's going on. It's just a little picture of your phone that's there, and you can interact with your phone through the operating system. That's continuity. There's a lot more that's in there. Text messages get forward, back and forth. AirDrop works along with it. Some nice capabilities, and all the synchronizations take place through the Apple Cloud, also known as iCloud. iCloud is what you would use. It is what enables continuity to work so well. Also works the other direction. So if you're at your desk and then you get up, you can on your phone find the tab that you had open and click on it. So it's a two-way street. We can work with both of those. It makes everything work exactly the same on both sides. So there is, what's the word I'm looking for? Continuity between these two systems. So that is exactly what that feature happens to be, and that's what 66% of you chose. 14% of you said mission control. Mission control is more like a very large screen that breaks out all of the different capabilities of your operating system. So I only have two windows open right now. I have preview and I have the presentation that you have. But if I had other things that were open right now, if you could see on the other side of my desk is where a lot of things are open right now. Let's see if I can show you that. I really can't because my big head's in the way. So that is a very nice function for the operating system, but it has nothing to do with using your iPhone as a laptop webcam. So not exactly what you would choose there. Spotlight is the search feature within the operating system. So think of it as the graphical version of the find command. It will find not just files, but it will find a lot of things, either online. It'll find information in files. Very nice to have that there. Very useful to make that happen. Gestures is a feature when you're using a trackpad on your Mac OS device where you can use more than one or two fingers or three or even four fingers in different ways. And however you move your finger on the trackpad will cause the operating system to do different things, and you can configure and customize that. And lastly, iCloud, that is the cloud-based service that kind of links all of these things together in the Apple ecosystem, but it is not what actually does the sharing of the laptop webcam or your iPhone as the laptop webcam. That would be continuity, and that's why 66% of you got that one absolutely correct. Well done. Well, there is a lot of information that we have already gone through, and we are only scratching the surface of the Core 2 exam. As you've probably seen, when you combine Core 1 and Core 2 together, it's 137 videos that are in this course. 19 hours of content. That's a lot of content. And as much as I would love for everybody to go through all 137 videos multiple times, I certainly recognize that not everyone has the time or the ability to go through all of that. And there might be some topics you're already familiar with, maybe skip over those. There should be some way to take all of the information that is inside of those very useful training materials and have them all in one place. And that's exactly what I created with my course notes. This is a set of notes that takes everything from every video, all of the text, all of the graphics, all of the important tables that I have in here, they are in the course notes. Not only do we have this digital PDF version that you see on the screen, you can also get a printed version. So we have our digital edition, that's the PDF, and the physical edition, that is the printed book. It is identical to what you see on the screen. Let's see if I can find the page. So for example, the page that I'm showing here in the box is the page that you see on the screen, isn't it? Yeah, I think it is. So it's the page you see on the screen. So you've got an idea of what those look like. It is identical to the digital version. And if you purchase the physical edition, you get the digital edition for no additional cost. It's just included. And while you're waiting on this to be delivered, you can download and start using the digital edition immediately. It's a great way to have everything consolidated in one place. It's also something you might want to add on to your purchase of the practice exams because you get a little bit of a price break when you buy them together. And then you've got a way that you've got both the Q&A that you can use and a summary that you can really take anywhere you happen to go, because it's in a PDF format. Those are my course notes. That might be something that can help you for your exam. That's something you think might help. It's you can find it on our website at professormesser.com/1202notes. A lot of you already have these. Thank you so much for your continued support. It really does go a long way to keeping this crazy experiment going. So thank you so much for your consideration of that. Let's do some more questions. Here we go. Next on our list is this question that asks, a user has enabled Windows Hello on their laptop. Which of the following would be the most likely purpose for this configuration? Would it be single sign-on, group policy configuration, passwordless authentication, VPN encryption, or user account control? There's a lot there to pour through. All security questions here. This question again asks, a user has enabled Windows Hello on their laptop. Which of the following would be the most likely purpose of this configuration? Is it single sign-on, group policy configuration, passwordless authentication, VPN encryption, or user account control? If you think you know the answer, follow the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, to answer this question. I'll also remind you that you can submit a question for the after show at any time from that same URL. So if you are working on something and you think, I need to ask that, I need an answer on that one, you can submit it right there using the tabs at the top of your screen when you visit professormesser.com/QA. Something useful to go through. A lot of people answering quickly on this one. Maybe we've got this one locked in as well. I try to make questions a little bit harder and harder and harder, and you seem to be adjusting as I go. Every move I make, I move left, you move left as well. I move right, you move right as well. It's hard to trick you guys. You're really on top of these. Let's see how you did with this one. The question again asks, a user has enabled Windows Hello on their laptop. I like the chat room. They're going, what are you talking about? What is Windows Hello? I'm glad you asked. I'll answer that in a moment. Which of the following would be the most likely purpose for this configuration? Is it single sign-on, group policy configuration, passwordless authentication, VPN encryption, or user account control? And you answered, 64% of you answered passwordless authentication. But a huge chunk of you, 21% said single sign-on and 12% said user account control. And then we dropped down to basically nothing. 2% said group policy configuration and 1% said VPN encryption. Well, 64% is a pretty big number. And I think that was one that a lot of people got right. VPN, not it. Group policy, single sign-on. Nope. Passwordless authentication. It's the latest thing in security, is to not have to use a password. And that's why would we not want to use a password? Because passwords are awful. I mean, from a security perspective, they do have a very important purpose. And up to this point, they've worked pretty well for us, generally speaking. But there's a reason we have multi-factor authentication. And that reason is because passwords are just not that secure. Other people can figure out your password. Maybe somebody heard you talking about your password. Maybe you wrote down your password and somebody saw what you wrote, or they see the yellow sticky that is stuck to your monitor. It's too easy to get your hands on somebody's password. So the industry started thinking, how can we avoid people doing this with passwords? Well, let's just not have a password. Let's just get rid of passwords. Great idea, but how do you do that? Well, there's lots of ways to think about doing it. One of the ways is through passwordless authentication. You've probably even seen this. There are a number of websites I log into now that don't even ask me for a password. You put in your email address, and then it sends you a text message, or it sends you an email, and you have to respond to the email or respond to the text message to be able to authenticate to that location. I never even typed in a password. It simply assumes if you have access to your email, you must be that email person, and that's the way it works. There are other ways to provide passwordless authentication. It could be a number of different factors that you're using. If you're using a lot of built-in passkeys these days, that is a way that you could take advantage of public key encryption to be able to secure your connection to some of these sites. Or you may be using facial recognition. You might be using Windows Hello. That's a feature built into Windows that allows you to do passwordless authentication. So that is, for example, facial recognition is Windows Hello with facial recognition. There's also a Windows Hello fingerprint reader. So many of these are biometric, but they don't have to be biometric to be passwordless. For example, I mentioned in here the security keys that you might use, whether it is a physical or a digital security key. Those aren't biometric, but they are one way that you can provide passwordless authentication. Very often, these passwordless authentications are not as secure as we would really like, so they're often used in conjunction with a password or with multiple authentication factors to be able to really verify that you are the person putting these things into the system. You are authenticating properly to that computer. There are other options we had here. We were talking specifically about Windows Hello in this particular question. Windows Hello itself does not provide any single sign-on capabilities. You would have to integrate Windows Hello into a system that did have single sign-on. So if you're using Windows Hello in conjunction with Active Directory, those Active Directory services allow you to do single sign-on, and it turns out Windows Hello is one way that you could authenticate into that system without using a password. Group policy configuration, very similar in that vein, because the way that you configure your Active Directory policies is using group policy, but group policy itself is not related to Windows Hello, at least not directly. Windows Hello is best described as passwordless authentication. We also have VPN encryption. VPN encryption is how you would configure a VPN tunnel between either a user and a remote site or between two site-to-site connections to provide protection of the data within those encrypted tunnels. But that's not what Windows Hello does. It doesn't provide VPN encryption. It also does not provide user account control. UAC is that, I guess you could call it, an annoying window that comes up whenever you're trying to do something important on your system, or it asks you to verify that you really want to do that thing. But that's not a bad thing. That is protecting you against malware. And it's all an important step in protecting your overall system and all of your systems, really. But user account control is not associated directly with Windows Hello either. The answer here, the one we were looking for, the one that makes the most sense, is the passwordless authentication, and 64% of you got that one absolutely correct. If you're somebody who is watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I would love to send you an email that certifies that you are here for 1 hour of a webinar category CEU. Those CEUs can be used to help renew existing certifications. Some people use these CEUs for other third-party purposes as well. Doesn't matter to me. I will send you the CEU regardless. The way that you would earn that CEU is you must follow these instructions. This is part of the CEU process. You would go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. So go to professormesser.com, click Contact Us at the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. That will bring up a form. Put in your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put October 2025 Core 2 so that I know where this came from. And in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, which are Windows Hello Passwordless Authentication. Could I have picked any longer words? Apparently not. So let me go through those instructions again. You go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link in the form that appears. Put your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put October 2025 Core 2. In the body of the message, put the super secret code words of the month, Windows Hello Passwordless Authentication. And that will be sent to me. I will do nothing with it for a number of days, probably. Sometimes I'm turning these around very quickly. It's not true. Sometimes it takes me about a week. So you may not get an immediate response from me, but if you did everything right, within about a week, you will receive an email from me that contains the certification that you were here to watch this 1 hour of a webinar category CEUs. Keep in mind that you have to earn more than just webinar category CEUs to renew your certification. You can't simply watch 25 of these and you're renewed. It doesn't work that way, as much as I wish it did. You have to do other things as well. But depending on the certification that you're renewing, you could watch 5 of these, 10 of these, or more to be able to apply back towards your renewal. That's how you would make that happen. Our answer in this case, passwordless authentication. Now you're very familiar with the Windows Hello feature. We've got time for more questions, so let's do some right now. This next question asks, a user is trying to install a new app on their smartphone. If I could read the rest here, but the installation process fails before it completes. Which of the following should the technician check when troubleshooting this issue? Should they check Bluetooth connections, MDM policies, battery level, browser version, or application date and time? The question again asks, a user is trying to install a new app on their smartphone, but the installation process fails before it completes. Which of the following should the technician check when troubleshooting this issue? Is it Bluetooth connections, MDM policies, battery level, browser version, application date and time? If you know the answer, please lock in your answer on the link that you see on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Again, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. Although I really don't have to say that very much this time. You guys are being great about not adding more additional details into the chat, and I sure appreciate it. Makes my job so much easier when that happens. Thank you again for doing that. See if you know this one. Maybe you've done this. Maybe you've had your smartphone and you've run into a problem. What could it be? What could the issue be associated with that? Lock in your answer. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Sorry, taking a sip there. Well, getting a little dry in here, isn't it? Not really. More of, I guess I've just been talking for an hour. That might have something to do with it. This is a question I think that when we get into the world of mobile devices, everything changes with the management and control and administration of those devices. So there's always something we have to think about when we are troubleshooting those. And there's an entire section of the exam objectives associated with troubleshooting mobile devices, not only at the application level, but also for security. Let's see how you did with this one. The question again asks, a user is trying to install a new app on their smartphone, but the installation process fails before it completes. Which of the following should the technician check when troubleshooting this issue? Is it Bluetooth connections, MDM policies, battery level, browser version, or application date and time? Let's see what you answered. We'll close the poll. And 79%, we're getting some very big numbers on this study group this time, aren't we? 79% say the answer is MDM policies. We also have 7% that say the answer is battery level, 9% said application date and time, 4% say browser version, and 1% said Bluetooth connection. So other than the 79% of you that say MDM policies, everything else is single digits. And that is exactly what we were looking at here. MDM policies can be a big problem when an application is not installing. This certainly could be a connectivity issue. If you're not connected to the internet or your connection to the internet is a little spotty, all of these applications are being downloaded from the internet, from the cloud. So if you are if you do not have a very good connection to the internet, then you do not have a very good way to install these applications. But that wasn't one of the options available to us. So what other problems could we run into? We could run into limited storage space. If we don't have enough room to store the app, then it certainly will not get installed. But again, that wasn't one of our solutions that we were given. It wasn't one of the options that we had. Well, we also have payment methods not working. That could certainly be part of it and being able to work through it. But I think in this case, the answer that really made the most sense to really most of you was the mobile device manager is blocking it. That is exactly the situation that it would be. Folks in the chat room are even saying, well, you didn't say there was a corporation involved. Well, I sort of did, actually, because the question said that a user is trying to install a new app. What should the technician check when troubleshooting this issue? I don't really keep a technician at home. So this would have to be on my corporate device to be able to work through it. And an MDM policy is what we would use. It could be something with the App Store, of course. Maybe the App Store is down and causing problems. Certainly would not be the issue. But given the possible answers here, that really is the only thing it could possibly be. Let's have a look at, for example, 9% said application date and time. Well, I think we've seen applications that we've selected from the App Store or whatever online service that we're using. The date and time of the application doesn't allow or disallow us to install the app. So that's not going to be our issue. Battery level, always a concern, always a problem, it seems. And of course, if the battery got to 0, nothing would work. But even if your battery was at 1%, you would still be able to install the application. It would probably turn off right after that. But you really have to think about what the battery is doing. And most applications will install just fine. The only thing that probably would not install if the battery was low would be an update to the operating system of the device. Most of these mobile devices will say, nope, your battery's too low, we're not going to install it, or plug into power and we'll install it then, that type of thing. We have 4% that said browser version, or we're not even in a browser. We're just trying to install a new app on the smartphone, probably not in the browser, and the version of the browser is probably not going to affect the installation of the application. And 1% said Bluetooth connections. It's not Bluetooth connections. We know that's the case, but only 1% chose that anyway. Bluetooth connections don't generally affect the ability of an application to install itself onto a smartphone, so 1% is probably about right in that scenario. It would not be Bluetooth connection. The answer here, MDM policies. Even if you didn't know this was a corporate device, that is the only thing that would really cause this issue anyway. That's the answer that we were hoping to see, and that's the answer that you should have chosen here, and 79% of you did and got it absolutely correct. Should we do another question? Maybe a couple more. We got time. Next on our list is this question that asks, if I can find it on my screen, which of the following backup types converts multiple saved backups into a single restore set? Is it incremental, GFS, cloud, synthetic, differential? Got a few to choose from. The question again asks, which of the following backup types would convert multiple saved backups into a single restore set? Is it incremental, GFS, cloud, synthetic, or differential? If you think you know the answer, use the link on your screen to lock in your answer. See if you know what this one happens to be. You might even use this one. This one is in the exam objective. In fact, all of these answers, I tend to pick answers that are in the exam objectives. So we can certainly think about what the answers might be through all of these, but you've probably seen these because they are all in the exam objectives. That brings up another point, by the way, that if you are working on one of these questions and you see an answer that's a word or a term you don't recognize immediately, make a note of it because it's something you should know for the exam. I usually don't make up answers in these study groups. I like to use answers that come directly from the exam objectives so that you can effectively test yourself with 5 different topics every time you see a question on the screen. It's not just the question and one of the answers. You need to understand the question and all of the answers on the screen. So another one of those that you would go through. A lot of people getting their answers in, but kind of slow this time. Kind of slowly getting those answers into the mix here. Let's see how we do. Let's step through and see how you did with this one. The question asks, which of the following backup types would convert multiple saved backups into a single restore set? Would it be incremental, GFS, cloud, synthetic, or differential? We'll close our poll and see. Oh, we finally get a rainbow. Finally, we have numbers that are what I strive for. I don't really strive for it, but it's nice to see that we're challenging ourselves with some of these questions. If we step through these, we can see that 28% say incremental, 26% say synthetic, 20% say differential, 14% say cloud, 13% say GFS. We don't even have single digits on this one. We are all over the place. So now we get to learn something. Now we have some fun because this is a relatively new topic on the exams. And this is something you might not have run into before. If you're taking a bunch of backup sets and you're somehow blending all of those backup sets together to make a single full restore, the way that you're able to do that is through the use of a synthetic backup. Normally to take a full backup, you would have to sit down on a computer and copy every single file, every single part of the operating system, copy everything that's there, and then save all of those to one single backup. And then when you need to restore from that, you take that one single backup set to the new system and you restore from that one single backup. It's a great way to do a backup and a great way to do a restore, but it takes forever to do the backup, doesn't it? It takes a long time to copy every single thing that is on somebody's computer. On the computer that's in front of me, I have 8 terabytes of SSD, and it's almost full. So to do a backup of my system takes a long time to copy all 8 terabytes of that, all 7.9 terabytes of my storage system, and being able to make that happen. But what if you were already taking incremental backups, you've already been taking differential backups, you've already been working through different backup types, you have everything that you need to effectively make a full backup, but it's split across multiple backup sets. Well, to make this easier, why don't we sort of cram all of these together, take only the most newest files that we have across all of these backup sets, scrunch them all together, deduplicate what's in all of those, and create another full backup, even though you really didn't copy everything again. You simply took all the backups you'd been making over time and you pushed them all together, you squeezed them all together into one single synthetic backup because you didn't actually take this full backup. You created it synthetically in a lab with pipettes and beakers. That's how you made it. Not quite that difficult, but you cram all of these together. There's software that can do this for you. It's a very common process because it's so much easier to restore from a full backup than restoring from multiple individual backup sets. You imagine even trying to pull off those individual backup sets to make that happen. That can be a challenge. So you might have, for example, you might be creating a full backup and then doing incremental backups every day. But then after a while, you have all these backup sets sitting around. In this case, I only have 4. But what if you had 3 or 4? What if you had a month of these? You had like 28 backups. That's too many backup sets. What if you lost one of the backup sets? Then you might not even be able to restore it all. So let's consolidate everything together and just create one single synthetic full backup And now we can effectively get rid of all of our previous backups. Throw them out. We're done with them. I now am starting fresh with a brand new synthetic full backup. Maybe I don't throw them out because you do have the ability. There might be a single file that's being updated every day on these incrementals. And on Friday, you've created a synthetic backup and somebody says, oh, you know what? I need the version I had on Tuesday. Okay, I can go back to Tuesday and get that for you and make that happen. That is a synthetic backup. That's the answer that we were looking for. And that's the answer that not a plurality of you chose. The plurality of you chose incremental. Incremental is the backup method we were just describing, where things change during the week and we only back up the things that were changed incrementally on these systems. Now, we also have differential backups that change what is different. That's another one, very similar to incremental, normally seeing incremental and differential compared to each other. But because we are collapsing these all into a single restore set, they would not be incremental and they would not be differential. Neither one of those collapses everything into a single restore set. Same thing with GFS. GFS is a strategy for backing up. That's your grandfather, father, son method of backup. I do have a mention of this in my course. Synthetic is obviously the answer that we were looking for. 26% of you chose that one. The other one was cloud backup. And all cloud backups are incredibly useful and store information outside of your computer at a different location. But it's another way that you could store things in different ways. You can use any type of backup method over the cloud. It's not one that is specific to having multiple backup types and converting them to a single restore set. That is not the best description of a cloud backup. The best description of what we were talking about is a synthetic backup. And that is what we were looking for, is to be able to find all of these backups and create a full backup through a synthetic method where you didn't actually have to do the full backup. So another one that you can consider when you're working through the details of this. Well, as many of you know, one of the challenges that you have when working with these systems is, and working through these exams, is there's so much information and you spend a lot of time watching the videos, reading a book, doing some hands-on, but eventually you will want to practice the things that you are working on. You'll certainly want to get things like the objectives because they will tell you all of the different topics that are there. So you've read through the objectives, you've looked through everything, but now you need some way to test yourself. And one of the best ways is to use a set of practice exams. And of course, for the Core 1 and Core 2 exam, we have a set of practice exams that have 3 separate 90-question practice exams in each one. So you now have a lot of questions to go through. This is one that not only includes multiple choice questions in this book, we also have performance-based questions, 5 performance-based questions in each of these 3 exams for a total of 15 performance-based questions in this single book. Let me show you what this book looks like. We'll do this by doing another question that comes directly from my practice exams book. Again, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. You can just follow along with me on the screen. And let's take a question such as the one that is question A25. You can see this is on page, what page is this on my book? It's on page 10 of my 220 1202 practice exams book. That's the one that I just showed. It comes directly from this book. Question A25 asks, a system administrator is installing a Windows Server device in the data center. Which of the following file systems would be the best choice for this task? Would it be REFS, APFS, ext4, or XFS? Got a few options to choose from. Now, because this is a PDF, you can annotate this. So if you have a stylus, you can write on your PDF. If there's certain terms that you want to kind of highlight in the question, you can do that as well. If you want to select a particular answer, you can write on the screen. Just another way that you can put your own information in this. Now, if you just want to know if it's A, B, C, or D, you can go to page 33 where it says quick answer. But we want a detailed overview of this answer, and that detailed overview is on page 63. Well, as I mentioned, we're on page 10. Well, if you've ever worked with a PDF, you know, to get to page 63, you have to scroll. If you're on your tablet, this is the way you do it. If you're on your desktop, you scroll with your scroll wheel, trying to get down to page 63, or you grab the little elevator bar at the end and you scroll down. You don't have to do that in this book, thankfully. All of these have a little link next to them. So if you highlight the details, you put your mouse over it, it turns into a little hand. You can click on it, and we immediately go to page 63. So in fact, I'll see down here at the bottom, page 63, it's exactly where we ended up, is on that link, and it gives us the question again, a system administrator installing Windows Server, and it gives us those options, and it tells us the answer is A, REFS, and it explains why this is the right answer. So it tells you that REFS, Resilient File System, is a Windows file system supporting large storage systems and a focus on data availability. Now, this isn't a breakthrough in practice questions. A lot of practice questions tell you why the right answer is right. But this kind of frustrates me in other practice questions that I've seen, is I get a lot of questions wrong. And if nobody tells me why the wrong answer is wrong, I haven't learned anything. All I've really been told is what I should have chosen. It's just telling me that I'm just wrong. That doesn't help me. I need to finish the learning process. I wanted to finish that circle out, because if I answered it wrong, I need to understand why the wrong answer is wrong. So in my practice exam book, every single incorrect answer is documented as to why it is incorrect. So this question, for example, is more than just learning about one topic. You're effectively learning about 4 individual topics in the same question. And if you answered APFS, you now know that that is the Apple file system. It's a file system commonly found on Apple operating systems such as macOS, iOS, and iPadOS, and so on and so forth. Another thing you'll mention, and I do this all the time in this book, it's an important part of it, is anytime you see an acronym in the answers, I explain what that acronym happens to be. So ext4 is the 4th extended file system. XFS is the extended file system. REFS is the resilient file system. So you're constantly getting feedback, we're effectively trying to get those acronyms into your brain without you having to do flashcards, without you having to learn it organically. It's just part of the existing practice questions that you're using. And if you went through this and you have no idea what REFS is, you don't know what file systems are, you didn't even understand the question, guilty as charged. At the very bottom is a link to the video that was used to create this question. So you can go back to the video and get a better understanding of the underlying technology. Just another way to close that learning gap and make it so that you really understand all of the topics associated with this practice question. Can you tell I put a lot of thought into this? We really have. Now, when we're done with this, I want to go back to where I started. Well, you may not even realize that your PDF reader has a back button in it. Here's the back button on my PDF reader. A lot of PDF readers have this. You click back. Look, we're back to where we started with our annotation and everything else. That is my practice exams book. If this is something that you would be interested in, it's available on our website from the main menus. You can go to professormesser.com, and from the main menus for the A+ Core 2, you will see the links for our course notes, our practice exams, our success bundles, and so much more. And again, if you get it together along with the course notes, well, now you've got that 1-2 punch. You got the course notes you need, you got the practice exams to test you, and you can get ready for your exams and walk in being ready to go with a very similar style and tone of questions that you might get on the actual exam. To be clear, I wrote every single one of these questions from scratch. These are not questions that you will find on your exam. This is a completely ethical way to learn these very challenging topics in a way that emulates a similar style. So when you walk into the exam room, you will not be taken aback. You will not be jarred by the things you see because you've already practiced them in our practice exams book. All available on our website. Don't forget about the objectives that we have out there as well. Course notes are great. The practice exams are great. The course notes are free. Or you say the objectives are free, and they're on the CompTIA website. This gives you every single topic you need to know for the exams. Here's the copy of the official exam objectives for the 1202. They break down for you every bullet of everything you need to know. In fact, right here in in Domain 1, Operating Systems, Section 1.1, explain common operating system, OS types, and their purposes. Notice File Systems is right there. New Technology File System, NTFS. Resilient File System, REFS. ext4 is right there. XFS is right there. APFS is right there. That's where I got those from, because that's what CompTIA is going to test you on. They're not going to test you outside the scope of this practice of these exam objectives. I keep hearing on the internet that other training centers or other training people will tell them, oh no, they go outside the scope of these objectives. Since when? In the last 20 years, they have never gone outside the scope of these objectives, and they're not starting now. Stick to the objectives. This is like a magic list. If you know every single one of the bullets on this magic list, you're going to pass your exam. That's how confident I am of the information that is in these objectives. And that's also why our training course sticks to these objectives to the letter. And that's because that's what's expected to know. And by the way, if you know everything in this list, everything that's in these objectives, you're better than certified. You know a lot more about technology than when you started. It's a great way to study and a great way to keep in mind what's important to know for the exam. All of this is on the CompTIA website. You'll find the objectives there at CompTIA.org. We do one of these study groups for A+ every month. We actually do 2 study groups for A+ every month. Usually we do A+ near the beginning of the month, and then Network Plus is in the middle, and Security Plus is near the end. November is not that way. My life is chaos. So I have created a calendar that matches that chaos. So you'll notice November, we have A+ on the 17th for Core 1. Our Core 2 is on the 19th. Network Plus is on the 21st. Yep, we have 3 study groups on the same week. You should just tune into the one on Friday just to see how I turn out. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I don't think we've ever done 3 in a week before. It'll be, welcome to the Friday study group. We'll do that. It'll be me. We'll stumble through. I'll have to put honey. We'll just have to drink hot tea, and we'll make sure that the throat is okay. We'll be all right. And then Security Plus is Thanksgiving week if you're here in the U.S. on November the 25th. So another one of those that you could work through. This is our calendar, but this calendar can change. As I mentioned, the chaos that is my life can sometimes pull me in different directions. So if you ever want to know when the latest update is of what is really current with our schedule, go to professormesser.com/calendar. That's where I keep everything updated. The moment I make a change, I make the change on that URL. It's exactly the same calendar that's on our Discord in our events channel. Both of those are perfectly usable, perfectly reasonable, and updated with the latest schedule. It's a good way to keep track of when our next live event is going to be. Well, we're done with the Q&A. Can you believe it's been an hour? It's been more than an hour. We've done some Q&A today, but we've got more. We'll stick around for the after show where I'm going to answer questions that you've submitted through that link we mentioned earlier, professormesser.com/QA. Don't forget about our course notes and practice exams on our website at professormesser.com/1202success. We've also got our discounted vouchers, which come with our free exam hacks ebook, which you can only get by purchasing the vouchers or a success bundle. That will be at professormesser.com/vouchers. We also have all of the links that you can find us on online. Just use that link, professormesser.com/ the name of the place you'd like to find us, /Discord, /X, /YouTube, /Instagram, and there might even be some new ones coming soon. We'll have to find out. A lot of people have sent me emails saying, where's my TikTok dancing video? Well, you're just going to have to wait even longer. I don't think you're ever going to see one of those, and I think you're pretty happy about that deep down. I think I am, certainly. It's a great way to find us online, and it's certainly a place where you can go to find all of the resources that we might have available and to contact us in the online forums. Thank you so much for joining us in this first hour. Stick around for the after show. Don't go anywhere, but we appreciate you being here this time. Thanks for joining us on our Core 2 A+ study group. Thanks, everybody. Okay, I'm going to take another sip from this. One moment, please. Thank you for your indulgence. Let's get rid of our graphic. Whoa, that was jarring. That was abrupt. I was hoping for something more casual. Nope, we're right in your face. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the after show. This is a little bit more of a casual after show because I don't really do much preparation. And by that, I mean I don't do any preparation when I do the after show. The after show is one where you do all of the work. It seems a little unfair, but there it is. If you have a question you want to ask of me, this is the time you can do it, and you use the same URL that I have been constantly talking about. It is professormesser.com/ QA. Let's now go to that list and see what questions you might have for me. You can add new questions to this list at any time. I will be sifting through all of these for you to be able to submit those. That is not the view I would like you to have. That really is not the view I would like you to have either, but here we are, people. This is what we're doing. Let's see if I can push a button on my side and put all of the pieces together. We made it happen. So submit those questions at any time. You go to the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, which means it's time for me to start sifting through some of these questions that you might have. It's my time to actually do some work. So I told you that I didn't have to prepare. Well, now's the time I actually have to do something. When you submit these questions, you can do these into our chat at any time. And this is a good place to start since we're talking about the A+ today and we're talking about what other people have said. Let's talk about them. This is from Brian, who has sent us a note and says, is CompTIA A+ to start and get an entry-level position in the industry? And what do you think of other creators that say it's a bad first certificate? It's confusing. Don't even know what they're talking about there. So that you know where we're coming from with the A+, we have been creating A+ training courses online for free for the internet community. We're coming up on 20 years of doing this. It is the best way to get yourself the primer, the starting point, the introduction into the world of information technology. Could you do other things to learn all of these topics? I suppose you could. You could spend all day on Wikipedia wandering around there trying to figure it out. You could go to other sites and other types of certifications if you would like, but there's just nothing else like the A+ out there in the industry. I don't know who's saying that's a bad first certificate. The only time I see people really talking badly about A+ or really any certification in general are the people that either already had that certificate in the past and they've now moved forward in their career, learning more content, learning more technologies, and gaining a larger foundation of knowledge to build on. Or it's people that have never taken the A+, and they really don't know what it's like. Very often when I hear people talk bad about the A+, they talk about all it teaches you are outdated topics about things you'll never run across. And my question is always back to them, oh, well, name one of those. What outdated topic do you think is on the exam? And it turns out they give me a list of 0. They give me a list of nothing. They're never able to tell me anything. They have topics that they think are on the exam. They teach you about token ring networking. Well, they did 20 years ago when token ring networking was used. They don't teach you that anymore. The exam's updated every 3 years. There's nothing on the A+ exam today that you would not walk into any modern data center and find sitting in the rack. That is exactly what this exam is designed to do, is prepare you for an actual working environment. In fact, when you walk into a data center, you may find some things that are really old in there, but generally speaking, the A+ exam is spot on with the things that you would commonly find in a modern data center. It is one that it has really stood the test of time as far as certifications go. And I think a lot of people are just very happy talking badly about what they know and being very much gatekeeping from that perspective. I think a lot of people are very concerned that other people might learn what they know and be able to compete for those same jobs. I guess it's sort of human nature from that perspective. That's not our view here. Our view is that we want to give you the tools that you need to get your first job in IT or to get a better job in IT. And that's the most important thing that we are doing. Now, you could do that by learning the topics on the A+. Maybe you don't even take the certification exam. Maybe you do. But either way, you've now learned the content. And I think you can point to any of the objectives on the A+ exam, whatever it happens to be, and you can apply that back to what people are doing today in a corporate environment. That's exactly what employers would like to have. And I think that's one of the reasons that employers are the ones we should listen to when it comes to certifications that are valuable to them. We shouldn't just listen to random people on the internet. Don't even listen to me. Don't even listen to what I'm telling you about certifications. Go listen to what employers would like you to have. Do employers want you to have an A+, a Network Plus, a Security Plus? Go get those certs. Maybe you're in an area where they want other certifications for starting out. That's fine too. Go get those certifications. You need to match what employers are looking for with your personal knowledge base, with your personal foundation of knowledge, so that you can be a better match for the jobs that are open in your area. And trust me, if there were other certifications that were a better primer into the world of IT, I would do those training courses. There's a reason we picked the A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. They are just asked about. They are on tons of job postings. Employers are constantly asking for those certifications. But if you're in an area of the world where these certifications aren't important, then don't take those certifications. This is really very straightforward. This is really very matter of fact. I don't know what other online creators are saying because I don't waste my time watching those other online creators. I got other things to do, and they're just, I have my own opinions of the things that we're doing here, and I back up those opinions with actual content and actual examples. If somebody says that there is something bad, not right, or unimportant about a certification, tell me what it is. Let's talk about it. Let's break it down. Let's see what things are important. Ultimately, go to the job postings in your area, see what employers are asking for. That would be the people that I would listen to, not just any random person on the internet like myself. You need to go out and see what employers would like you to have. I've already done that. And that's why we're doing these certifications. Let's do another question from your list. Thank you for submitting that, by the way. Other questions that we have here. Let's take some of these and get them on the screen. So let's say you've decided to work through the A+. I just sent another one into the archives here that I really liked. Let's take this one and present it. Move to published. There we go. So let's get another question, Brian. It says, is CompTIA A+ to start? This is not the one. That's the one we just had. Hello. Not the question I wanted to have up on the screen, but it was a question that talked about being able, there it is. I reviewed it. Let's talk about this one. This is not from Brian again. This is from my good friend Anonymous. Anonymous says, I want to begin studying for my A+ cert. How do you think I should go about it? Well, the first thing I would recommend you watch is the very first video of our course where I talk about this. The real key to us is it is a multifaceted approach to certification training. It's not any one thing. A lot of people will often tell me, well, I saw your video course, but I needed more than that. Yes, you do. I've never said you should only watch my videos and do nothing else to earn your certification. That makes no sense whatsoever, and it's not a fantastic strategy. There are people that have sent me emails that have said, all I did was watch your videos, and then I took the exam and I passed it. But almost always those people already have some type of existing knowledge in the industry. They already got a job in IT, so a lot of those gaps have already been filled in for them. For the most part, we recommend a four-pronged approach to studying for your A+, or really any certification. We refer to this four-pronged approach as the WRAP method, W-R-A-P. You will not see me rapping. Maybe wrapping a package, but WRAP is how we approach the best possible combination to be able to give yourself the best opportunity when you walk into the exam center. The WRAP is, the W in WRAP stands for watching the videos. Well, I do like my videos. I spent a lot of time building these videos. They have been honed through the years to give you exactly what you're looking for, the exact content from the exam with the exact depth of knowledge that you are expected to know for the exam. Doesn't have to be my video series though. Maybe you have another video series you like. Go watch that video series, because there's something about watching someone demonstrate it or watching a lecture that helps us learn this content. So that's only one part of it though. That's the W in the WRAP method. R is the second letter. R is reading a good book. We often dismiss books. We think it's the modern age. We're going to watch the YouTube. We're going to go to a video course, and it's just, we're going to passively sit here and just have all of that information somehow get embedded into our brain. Doesn't always work that way. And the process of learning from a video is very different than the process of learning from a book. Books are very dense. They're able to get a lot of information transferred in a very short period of time because it is the written form. And because of that, video and books teach you different information in different ways. They're a great 1-2 punch. You should use both of those if you are studying for any certification exam. We're halfway through our WRAP method. WR, we're watching, we're reading. We now have the A, and we need to apply what we've learned by doing labs. So everything you learned in the videos, everything you read in the book, or maybe as you are going through these videos and watching the demonstration on the screen, maybe you want to do it yourself on your screen. So as you see me doing a top command, or you see me performing a trace route on my video, you'll notice that I will use public IP addresses to do these trace routes so that you can do exactly the same trace route from your computer. That type of labbing, that type of touching the keyboard and doing it yourself and seeing the results from that are a way to learn that I think is firing different synapses in your brain. It's sort of a muscle memory where you're typing the command and seeing the response. It teaches you in a different way. And you're applying the things that you've learned to be able to understand what you're seeing on the screen. So we are watching, we are reading, we are applying. The P in the WRAP method is to practice. So once you finish the first three, you're done with your reading, you're done with your video watching, you're done with your labs. Finally, at the end, practice with some practice tests. That's what you want to do. Don't do this during the process. Don't try going to your practice tests in the middle of your studies. You haven't learned everything yet. You need to go through the process after you're done to really see how much you learned of it. It's going to be a good way to test yourself. It's a good barometer to see where you stand in the list of everything that's on those exam objectives. So, of course, you should absolutely practice, practice, practice as much as you can. That's why we created these practice courses. Although we don't have the CertMaster labs on our site yet, I plan to have them there this weekend as another option. So if you need labs, CompTIA has some really good labs. They have not only their own labs, some of you may know they bought Test Out just over a year ago. All the Test Out labs are now in the CertMaster Labs product. CertMaster Labs has always been a very good labbing environment. And so they've just improved it. They've even put more labs into the latest set of CertMaster Labs, more labs in CertMaster Learn. They even have CertMaster Perform now, which is sort of everything all in one big bundle. So those will be on my site too. So you can pick the right combination of study tools to really give you the best opportunity when you step into the exam room. So there's our WRAP method. That's what I think the best way to study for any cert might be. Watch a good video, read a good book, make sure that you apply all of these things that you're learning with labs and practice with your practice questions. That's a great way to go about learning for these exams. And maybe that's something that you can consider doing when you are stepping through and studying for your exams. Thank you very much for submitting that question, my good friend Anonymous. So good to hear from you again. Let's keep going through this list of different things. We have a lot here to break through. Some of you sent me a book. Thank you for, not an actual book, but the amount of text in this question is very much like a book. So I would highly recommend that you keep your questions succinct so that I'm able to read through them in real time. And probably more importantly, they'll fit on the screen whenever I put them on there. So that's important too. Let's keep going through this list. Since we're talking about exams, I'm going to keep going with sort of exam questions and breaking these out. Let's get one from Fred. Fred asks, how long should I study for an exam before attempting to take it? We just talked about this in our Discord this week. This is a very timely question, Fred. Fred said, how long should preparation take? The answer to how long preparation should take is however long it takes. That ultimately is the answer. Now, I will say on average, most of these A+, Network+, Security+ exams tend to have an average of people studying for approximately 2 to 3 months. Not 223 months, 2 months or 3 months, somewhere in there or in the middle, 2 or 3. That's probably a pretty good average based on the information that I get from you telling me how long you practiced and tested and went through the labs, how long you did that study before taking the exam. Generally, it is 2 to 3 months. But one of the things that you'll often run into is it will take you longer than that. And you will think that you are not very smart because it's taking you a long time to learn all of this material. You know why it's taking a long time to learn this material? It's a lot of material. It's a huge amount of material. And some of us have a lot of time during the day to study. Sometimes people like me, you don't have a lot of time. You work a full-time job. You got a family. You have an hour at night that you could sit down and do this. And so it takes you a long time to go through all of this. That's not uncommon. I'm a 6-month studier for a certification exam. It takes me a long time to study for a certification exam. And so that's just a very good example of just how long it might take. But let me give you an example why it takes so long. Let's go back to the exam objectives. So here we're back at section 1.0, domain 1.0, operating systems. Explain common operating system types and their purposes. My recommendation for you is to go to this list, and then if you can describe one of these bullets to yourself or to someone else and be able to understand why it is important, then you can cross that off your list. I've already crossed a few things off my list here, but let's say that anything that we really understand, we will make green. Let's say that you're a Windows administrator right now. You really understand Windows very, very, very well. So let's say that for Windows, that's not something we need to worry about. Windows is good. Let's go to the next one that's on our list. And the next one that's on our list might be Linux. Well, I don't know a lot about Linux. Maybe we should learn more about why Linux is a useful operating system, what makes Linux different than Windows and Mac OS. Maybe we even install Linux in a virtual machine just so we can see what it looks like or play around with the desktop a little bit. And if you're a Windows person, you do that with Linux, you got it. Now you can cross out Linux off of your list. Next one on our list, Mac OS. Maybe you've never touched Mac OS. There's a lot of videos I created on Mac OS. There's a lot of videos on the internet about Mac OS. You can even go through the process of going through and understand where these different features are in Mac OS. You can even buy time on a cloud-based Mac server if you wanted to. I don't recommend doing that because it's unnecessary for A+, but maybe you, like me, you'd like to really get into each topic, and it takes you a long time to do that. It might take you a year to go through all of these objectives. You can see why you would want to spend a lot of time on some of these objectives to really understand the scope of what's involved with that individual bullet. So you go through all of these. It might take you a week just to go through this first section. It might take you 2 weeks. It might take you a month. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Your goal should be to learn everything that is in every single one of these bullets. That's what you should be focusing on. Don't worry about how long somebody else took to study for this exam. You are not them, and they may have not studied in a way that makes sense for you. You want to be able to really understand exactly all the information associated with these exam objectives. So make sure that you consider it. Make sure you step through each one of these. Make sure you take however long it takes to prepare for this exam. Some people will come to my site and they'll spend 2 weeks, take the exam, and they passed. I see messages like this on Reddit all the time. I studied for 2 weeks and now I'm A+ certified. But then you find out that they build their own computers. They've been in the industry forever. They're now a network administrator somewhere. They already know all of this information. They just needed to make sure they really understood the things that were separate in there that maybe they didn't know. So yeah, it's only going to take those folks 2 weeks. For the average group, it's 2 to 3 months. And for some of us, it's 6 months or more. But it doesn't matter how much time it takes. What matters is that you have really gone through and learned everything you need to know about every topic and be ready for whatever is asked of you on the exam. That is really the most important part of this. Let's keep going through this. I'm glad Giuseppe brought this up. I saw these questions in the early part of the study group, Giuseppe, about Italian. So I'm glad you put that into the questions here. Giuseppe asked, what about the non-English exams? Where can I find information on that? And is there an Italian exam? Oh, good question. So this actually brings up a couple of different things regarding the exams. And to address this, I am going to go to the CompTIA website to address it, specifically the certificates section of the website. You may have been out to the CompTIA website before. This is a list of all of their certifications and certificates that they currently offer. They are crushing it with all the things: Linux Plus, Project Plus, Tech Plus, Server Plus. It's all in here. We're obviously talking about A+. So let's go to A+ and break that down. Let's go to A+, and you can see there's a lot of different options for A+. A+ is separated out in this view as a Core 1, a Core 2, and a combination of Core 1 and Core 2. So you can see Core 1 V15, Core 2 V15, and Core 1 and Core 2 V15. These are the newest versions of the exam. There's also a Core 1 V14, Core 2 V14, and Core 1 and 2 V14. Those are the 1101 and 1102 versions of the exam, the version of the exam that came out 3.5 years ago. Now, if you are in the United States, you're in Canada, you're in North America, you may speak English as your first language, and that English language exam for V14 was retired on September 25th. So if you speak English, you can't take the older exam anymore because that exam is no longer available. But what if you don't speak English? Let's drill down into the V14 link so you can see what I mean. Even tell you, hey, it retired, just so you know. The English language room retired on September 25th. If you didn't pass, it's too late. But one of the things they mention on here, if I go down to the exam details, is languages. There are a number of languages that are supported for the 220-1101 and 220-1102, and they are French, German, Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, and Thai. You'll notice I left out English because English has now been retired. So if you know Italian, Giuseppe, I'm so sorry, but I'm not in charge of the languages for the exam. I am just telling you what they say on the site. So, but here's the workaround, because a number of people passed their Core 1 exam prior to the retirement date, and they didn't get the other exam passed before the exam was retired, which means they now have to start over on the new exam. However, there's a loophole that you could still complete your A+ certification as long as you do it before December, specifically December 19th, because that's when the other languages retire. So that means that even if you passed the Core 1 exam in English, you can still pass the Core 2 exam in French, German, Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, or Thai, and you would still be A+ certified. A bilingual A+. That would be pretty awesome. The hook, of course, is you have to be fluent in French, German, Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, and Thai, and that's a bit of a corner case for a lot of people. However, that does give you an option. So if you know French, you know German, you're good at Spanish, you know Thai, you can still take those exams. So you have a little bit of a chance as you're going through this. If that is a corner case, it's a little unusual, but it's got to apply to somebody, right? So I thought I would mention the options there. Now, if you don't know French, you don't know German, you don't know these other languages, you obviously can't do that. Your only choice is English. And if that is your only choice, then your only exams you can take are the V15 versions, which means you would be starting over from the very beginning with that. But at least you have options there and understand what they are. But there are other languages available. Unfortunately, Giuseppe, I am so sorry that Italian is not one of those. So maybe in the future they'll have Italian as one of those options. Currently, not one that is currently available. Maybe you know some of these other languages. You're doing really good with English in the chat room. You're doing really good with English on that message. Maybe English will be the one that works for you. You have options anyway to step through it. Let's get some more questions in. Keep sending these questions in, by the way. They're just being added to the list as we go through them, and a lot of good questions have come in right now. If you are someone who's working through these, we have a lot to break this down. A lot of great questions coming in too. One of the challenges with this exam, with a lot of these exams, is just finding the right fit for the exams. So a lot of the questions that we have that are coming in are questions that are asking about, I need to pick a certification. So you have A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, which one do I pick? And almost always when you're doing that, there will be people online that will tell you which exam you should take. Let me see if I can bring this up, because there's a good one on here, and I'm making a mess of it in my video switcher. But I want to show this question from Brenton. There it is. Hey, Professor Messer, passed my Network Plus exam a few weeks ago. Congratulations on your new Network Plus. My goal is to get into system administration for Windows and then become a cloud engineer. Another thumbs up. What do you think are good certs to start with? The best cert to start with is the one that the person hiring for the system administration for Windows job or the person hiring for the cloud engineering job are asking for. So before we go any further, doesn't matter what I think, matters what they think. But there is some industry knowledge I can at least apply to some of this. And cloud is a great place to strive for because we're doing everything in the cloud now. There are specific technologies that make that cloud environment work extremely well, and it's unique characteristics that you might find between different cloud providers. AWS, the Amazon Web Services, Microsoft has their own cloud. You have to think about, you have other clouds like from Rackspace and other places. So every cloud is a little bit different. So it's useful to have some type of industry knowledge about those systems so that you can properly administer them. This particular combination of Windows and cloud is a good one. So if you're looking at anything related to Windows and perhaps even anything related to the cloud, that kind of screams Microsoft, doesn't it? Microsoft has a large set of certifications. Generally, all of their certifications these days are very cloud-centric. So you will find a lot of options there on the Microsoft side. They have moved away from individual certifications that focus on an operating system for some reason. I'm not sure. I sort of know what they were thinking, but I don't know why they did what they did on the certification front. They effectively threw out individual Windows operating system certifications, leaving CompTIA and other people to sort of fill in the holes there. So I can't complain too much about the strategic decisions that Microsoft makes. I'm sure they have their reasons. But what they do have is a lot of very good Azure cloud certification programs. So if you're interested in the cloud, those would certainly be good ones to have. But of course, if you're moving into a company and you're using Amazon Web Services instead of Azure, then maybe it would be better to get AWS Cloud. Any cloud would be good though. This is sort of like having to get a certification in spreadsheets. You know, if you know Excel, you probably know Google Sheets. They're very interchangeable. There are certainly syntactical differences between the two. There are fundamental usability differences between the two, but the bulk of them in the big Venn diagram of those two, a lot of it is overlapping. Same thing with a lot of the cloud services. A lot of the functionality, a lot of the characteristics of Azure are very similar to the usability and the characteristics that you would find in Amazon Web Services. Some things are very different. The permissions, for example, between those two, very different in how they would be implemented, very different in how you would use them. There is also differences in the management of those two. Obviously, the management systems in Azure are very different than the management systems in Amazon Web Services. Same thing for their REST APIs and other automation functionality between those. But the large percentage of how those systems work and what you would expect is once you learn the cloud, you can effectively take those ideas and apply it to almost any other cloud-based system that is out there. So that is what I would recommend too, is have a look at what maybe you work somewhere now. If you do, find out what cloud systems they use. If you're planning to work for a company, find out what cloud they're using. Sometimes you can do this very easily. And I brought this up before, and it's always a good tip, is one of the best ways to get a job with a company is to know someone who already works there. But how do you meet somebody who works? You can just walk in. Hi, I'm here to meet your technical people so they'll know somebody who works here. Doesn't work that way. But you need to go to where they are. You need to be, it's sort of like you want to do your own personalized version of a watering hole attack. So it's not really an attack, but it has the same characteristics of that. If you've taken Security Plus, you're already familiar with what a watering hole attack is. So let's say, for example, I wanted to get information from an insurance company, but I tried to get through their firewall, and their firewalls are solid. I tried to call around to their help desk and do some phishing over the phone, saying that I was from their other facility. They sussed me out immediately. Nope, you're a faker. We're off the phone. You just can't get in there to get the data. But you know that everybody at that insurance company orders their lunch at a sandwich shop across the street. They do all the time. So if I can get into the sandwich shop system, I can then find a way into their system by maybe putting some malicious code at the sandwich shop that finds its way into the insurance company and gives me a backdoor into their systems. That is called a watering hole attack, because you didn't go to the victim directly. You went to their watering hole and you poisoned the well. So once you are now, you want to do sort of a similar thing, but not maliciously. You want to find these people and talk to them about their company and what they do, and you want to meet them. The best way to do this, I think, is to network. Not computer networking, although I do like computer networking. You want to do people networking. I know having to deal with people is something that I think our modern world is becoming less comfortable with. It seems that we are becoming less interpersonal in how we communicate. We are trying to create more barriers so that we don't have to talk to a human. We don't have to look in people's eyes. I don't want you to, don't talk to me. I don't want to talk to humans. We just want to DoorDash it. We just want to Instacart it. I don't want to have to talk to people. But in reality, it is a very powerful skill. It's a very well supported skill. It's a skill that will improve your career. Being able to communicate and talk to other human beings is like a superpower these days. So one of the things I would recommend is to go talk to other human beings. And in technology, one of the best ways to do that is a user group meeting. Find the Cisco user group meeting in your area. Find the Microsoft user group meeting in your area. Find the Palo Alto Networks user group meeting in your area. Maybe there are a lot of regional technology shows that you will find coming through in these large metropolitan areas. You might not even know they're happening because you're just not in the loop. Search for regional technology show, and you'll find that there is, there's a hotel in your area. They have a conference facility. A lot of companies will come and set up a booth. They'll talk about their technologies. There will be breakout sessions where people will talk about these technologies in a larger group. There's a chance you can sit down and talk to other people in your area. This is a great place to meet people. And if it's a user group meeting, it's even better because it's a little smaller. You can really meet people face to face. And you need to have some ice breaking. So you go to a user group meeting, and I'm speaking as someone who has hosted a large number of user group meetings, specifically for security professionals. And one of the things that you might want to do is just say, hey, how you doing? This is my first time here at the user group meeting. Is this your first time? You've come to one of these before? No kidding. Where do you work? What do you do? Do you work with security? You need to find out who these people are and see, I know that company. I've driven by your building tons of times out on interstate, whatever it is. That seems like a great place to work. If you had a recommendation of what somebody at an entry level needed to have on their resume to get a job in your company, what would that be? Just ask the question. Just find out. The other thing I'll tell you is that anytime you tell somebody who has a position at a company that you're job hunting, they will ask you for your resume. And you may think to yourself, wow, they're really interested in me getting a job. I must have really made a good impression. And you might have, but probably they're also thinking that if they submit your resume to HR and you get hired, they get a finder's fee. A lot of companies will do this. They have an employee referral program. And if they bring the employee in, They get money once you start working. You also get a job and they get a bonus. They get a few $100 in their paycheck just by bringing you in. I have worked with people that have just become sort of their own internal recruiters. They've built their own effective money-making process by collecting every resume they can get their hands on and handing it over to their HR department. So you may not even think your resume is worth that much. Oh, no. Your resume is very valuable, especially to people in the industry. And this gives you an advantage. Well, there goes the screensaver. And this gives you an advantage in the industry because now you know somebody who works there. Now, when you sit down, you finally get that interview with the company and you sit down with folks and you can tell them, oh yeah, I know Fred from the Microsoft user group meeting. We spent a long time talking about single sign-on and multi-factor authentication and the challenge with that. This is just the normal way you communicate with technical people. Technical people love to talk tech. I love to talk tech. And so anytime we can get together with a bunch of other technical people and talk about the challenges, talk about the new products you're using, talk about the issues you're having getting support on a particular product, talk about the latest malware that you found, talk about the latest attacks that you're reading about, that's just all good. You're not only improving your knowledge of the industry, you've now met somebody in the industry. So absolutely get familiar with the underlying user group communities in your area, the local trade shows. Anytime there's a chance to meet someone technical, make sure you go out and do that. It can be a game changer. It is one of those important elements of job hunting that I think a lot of people overlook, and it is a very, very powerful element. Knowing someone who works there gets through a lot of the problems you would normally run into. The roadblocks are suddenly gone when you're working through that. So that's something you should also think as well. It might be useful to consider, especially if you're getting into IT and you don't know anybody. Well, it's time to go learn, time to go find some people. And maybe if you're really enterprising, this is what I would do if I was in your shoes. If you're super enterprising and you are planning to go to a Microsoft user group meeting, go search LinkedIn for everyone having anything to do with Microsoft at company X in your area. Now, we all know these companies. There's big companies in your area. You probably know their names. You drive by their names of these companies when you're on the interstate. You see people that already work at these companies. Go do some recon. It's not stalking, it's recon. You're finding out more about the people that work there. So if you do run across these people, you can even say, oh, I saw your LinkedIn. Right. Yes, I know about you and the things that you do there. Tell me more about the Microsoft stuff you work on. You always want to have a question asking them about them. You want to know more about what they are doing. And this will bring up other questions and those types of things. And usually there's food and there's things to drink. There's usually these user group meetings are always a great time anyway. There's always something to learn. There's always some food to eat. And who doesn't like a free pizza? That's a great thing to think about. So if you're doing that, that is exactly the type of networking that makes a difference. Once you know one person, they'll introduce you to another. Once you find out from that person, what other user group meetings do you go to? Have you heard about any trade shows coming up that would be interesting? We're all talking about them because we all go to these trade shows. We all go to these user group meetings. Make sure you do that. That's you talking. Never mind. I'm going to put that down. This is a chance for you to really meet the people in your area, and it will have a big effect. By the way, these people that you meet in IT will be people that you talk with your entire career. As much as we talk about the millions of people that are in IT, it really is a very tight-knit community, and it's very regional. It's in a very specific area. And you tend to have people move from company to company within the same general area because that's usually the way it works. You don't usually move your house from place to place when you're looking for a job. You tend to stay in one place and keep the family whole, and you don't have to move the kids from school to school, and your wife can keep their job and you can have your job, or vice versa. That's the way it works. And I think if you're someone who's looking to get into the industry, that would give you a pretty good leg up. So that's my recommendation anyway. Certainly, along with the other things you would be doing, things you would be learning in your lab, the certifications that you're getting, the formal education that you have, all of these things are important. So, Brenton, if you're working towards system administration, you're working towards cloud engineer, I think it would be very useful if you could meet some system administrators and you can meet some cloud admins. It is very different once you get their name and you recognize them and you can see them and you can say hello at the next event. I know we're at the top of the hour, but we're going to try to fit in another question or two, probably one, considering how the throat's doing on this view. We spoke earlier, I spoke just a moment ago about your home lab. And I think that would be worthwhile to talk about. So here's a question from Brian who asks, what are some home labs that I should do from A+ that gives me the hands-on experience I need to learn? Oh, there's so many I can kind of think of off the top of my head. Let's think of some right now. I'm going to give you a couple, 3 or 4 things, and a lot of these you can do yourself without any type of formal learning or following along. Other questions or things you might find might need additional input. You might have to watch a video on the YouTubes to be able to really do it yourself. But part of the goal with a home lab is certainly to get it up and running and show someone that you were able to make this technology work. But I think one of the most important parts of a home lab is the fact that it's not going to work the first time you plug it in. It's not going to work the first time you turn it on, because it's technology. There's always something that doesn't work right. There's always an error message you get. There's always something on the screen that is causing this to fail. This is your normal life in IT, by the way. An IT job is nothing more than someone who knows how to solve puzzles. And we get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of puzzles all the time that we have to solve. This is one of those chances. So you're effectively creating a puzzle that you have to solve in your home lab. Some of the home labs here's a good one you could just start with. You could probably do this one on your own, is to, if you have not installed any type of virtual machine manager on your computer, you need to do that. So grab VirtualBox. That one's free from Oracle. Maybe you want to grab VMware has now all of their VMware workstation is free. So that would be another good one to do, to set up a VM and start running it so that you can get an understanding of what is this VM really doing? How does this work? And then you can even build onto that, because once you understand a virtual machine, maybe you could build out a VM with containers. That takes you more of a modern style of virtual machine implementation. It's not VMs, it's even more modular, but it is certainly a very popular way to distribute applications these days. So just becoming familiar with those technologies is a great home lab. If you want to take it to the next level, start installing some operating systems on those VMs. Start installing Linux, install Windows Server, install whatever operating system you can get your hands on, and have it running on your desktop. That's a lot of fun also. It's a great home lab. It's also very useful. Ultimately, you need to have a goal with these home labs. For the A+, maybe you would like to set up a Windows Server in one VM and have a workstation in another VM connect to and talk with and be managed by that Active Directory server that's running on Windows Server. So you can set up your own Active Directory infrastructure, just like the big company down the street has. You're running exactly the same software on exactly the same operating system with exactly the same prompts and exactly the same setup that they set up on their systems. So there's a one-to-one match there to be able to make that happen. You will run into problems. You will need to troubleshoot them. Make a note of these. And I say make a note of the problems you ran into because you've probably heard these questions in your interview. Name a technical issue you ran into and what you did to solve it. Now, normally you'd have to think, think about a technical problem. You should be prepared for this. And if you have set up your own home lab, you have a big list to choose from. One of the things you have to think about doing when you walk into an interview is not just be prepared to answer questions and learn more about the company. you need to have stories. You need to have a lot of stories in your back pocket. Those stories will be used during your interview to explain and talk about these questions that are being posed of you. And so every time you run into a problem, it might be useful to document, just make a note, installed Windows Server, tried to get Active Directory, tried to connect to Active Directory. Here's the error I got. Here's what I did to find where that error was documented. Here's what I did to fix the error. And here's what happened afterwards. That's a 5 to 10 minute overview. It's a 5 to 10 minute conversation, which is what you need to have during an interview. But think about the things you did there. You did talk about a technical problem that you solved, but you also talked about a technology this company is already using, Active Directory. You talked about details of the Windows Server operating system that you had to modify to get that Active Directory configuration to work properly. So you're not only talking high level with things that they're very familiar with, you're also talking very detailed level, very technical level about things that you need to know about. So that's a very good example of comparing both of those and working through them. Other good labs, I mentioned this, there's a video that is in the YouTube video description of this video called How to Get a Job in IT with No Experience. And I talk about labs, and I give you, I think, 3 examples of labs in that one. Another one is setting up, this is for someone who's doing networking, but you would set up your own firewall or set up your own switches or your own routers and be able to use those. Most of the time, you can do this by using free tools. Cisco, of course, has their very well-known Packet Tracer. Packet Tracer is an emulated environment that allows you to build out a switched and routed network in a matter of seconds. It is so much better than using real hardware, by the way, because you can easily drag and drop routers, switches, connect them together, set up the different speeds, configure different settings, turn on and off spanning tree, turn on and off trunking, put a PC on different sides of the network, ping from one PC to another, put it in, they don't call it bullet mode, put it in bullet mode, like the Matrix, where you can go in real time, slow down. You take what was real time and you make it one packet at a time through one step at a time. And you can watch the entire process a packet takes, and you can tell it, go the next step, crunk, go the next step, boom, go, and you watch the packet as it goes, and take packet captures all along the way. All free, all built into Packet Tracer. So that's something that's a great learning tool, not necessarily something that is functional in a lab, but it is a great tool to be familiar with if you're getting into the world of networking. If you really want to be practical about the networking side, set up your own firewall. There's lots of great open source firewalls that are out there. Install one of them and replace the firewall that you are currently using at your home or not your office, but at your home. Be a great place to do this. And have a separate firewall that you're now doing additional reporting. You know, the firewalls that you would get for home, for Soho, are sort of the Linksys, Cisco-ish sort of Netgear devices. There's no management in those devices, very little. There's almost no reporting in those devices, and even limited functionality in those devices. They are not full-blown routers. They are not full-blown switches. But you can get software to put on your own hardware that is allowing you to do full-blown routing, that does provide you with extensive reporting, that allows you to really make detailed configurations of that particular security device. And what is more interesting than creating a report showing how many attempted attacks were made onto your network from the internet in a 24-hour period? And the number will be surprising to you. I guarantee it. If you've never looked at those numbers before, they will be very surprising. But think about going into an interview where you have a networking or security role and you talk about installing your own firewall and looking at the results of the policies and the rules that you created in that firewall. And you even pull out, oh, I even created a report on all the attacks that went into that people tried to get into my network during a 24-hour period. And here's the report. Wouldn't you like to see this? Oh, yeah. And look, this is an attack from this malware. Here's an attack from a bot. Here's somebody running a script. and it's all listed in this report. That is, you can keep that. Sure. Yeah, no problem. Here, I brought this for you. You can keep that report. Just put it with my resume there on the top of your list. That is something that is very impressive because that company has a firewall. They have security rules. They probably even have reports that they generate. And here you've done exactly the same thing. Are you using different software than they are? Probably. Do the reports look different than their reports? Yes, they do. But that's not important. The important part is you're doing exactly the thing that they're looking for. And so it's easy, as I mentioned, if you know Excel, then you also know Google Sheets. Same issue. If you know your open source firewall, you are very familiar with the process of setting up a firewall, and you understand broadly the administrative requirements of keeping that firewall running. That's what we're looking for when we're trying to hire somebody. So there's a couple of labs. You could probably think of 2 or 3 more just off the top of your head that would be interesting. If there's a piece of software that interests you, a networking component that you're excited about, some security technology that is really top of your list, go do that. That is a great home lab. And anything you do with those operating systems, with that network, with that security, can all be used towards getting that job or getting that better job in the information technology field. So thank you, Bryant, for that question. That was a great follow-up on the questions we had earlier about getting a job in IT. Well, that brings us to the top of the hour. We're actually a little bit over time this month. I hope that's okay with you for our Core 2 study group, but we have plenty more coming next week. Next week is our Network Plus study group, and the week after that is our Security Plus study group. So lots to do in October. We're not even close to being done yet. We'd love it if you came back and joined us for those live streams as well. You can find the calendar at professormesser.com/calendar, or it's also in the events channel on our Discord. If you're on mobile, simply go to the top of our Discord server. There's a little icon there that looks like a calendar. That's where I keep the list of all of those events. Thank you so much for joining us this time. We will see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everybody.